For the first time in several years, the Washington Redskins found themselves in a unique position. They were going to have all of their picks, their full assortment of picks heading into an NFL draft. So I thought heading in that the Redskins were going to want to accomplish three things under their new general manager. They were going to want to make this draft count, get some quality players, and do their damnedest to try and accumulate some additional picks in part to make up for some of the picks they lost in previous years with that draft deal back in 2012 where they moved up to get RG3. Now, the other thing I thought they were going to do in this draft, or I thought they needed to do in this draft, was to focus on the offensive side of the ball. I know a lot of the so-called experts and mock drafters had the Redskins focusing on the defensive side of the ball with the 5th overall pick. And even at one point in time, I did a scenario, I think, where I had Danny Shelton going to them at number 5. But I think throughout the process, I was always of a belief that somehow, some way, they were going to focus on the offensive side of the ball. And I thought that's what they needed to do, and that's what they had to do, especially once the decision was made to pick up RG3's 5th-year option. They needed to get some help for RG3. You figure some of those picks that they gave up to get RG3 to begin with that could have been used for pieces to help a young quarterback were not there. So, yes, you've brought in guys like Pierre Garcon and Deshaun Jackson via free agency. You've got an Alfred Morris in place. This is an offense that needs some young talent at all different areas on the offensive side of the ball. And if you expect the RG3 deal to ever work out and RG3 to ever become that guy, you have to give him every opportunity possible in order to develop into becoming that guy. And the only way to do that is to give him some help. So while people were mocking players like Leonard Williams or Dante Fowler or Vic Beasley there, I was always of the opinion that they were going to focus on either offensive line or a big wide receiver like a Amari Cooper or especially a Kevin White. Somehow, some way. And ultimately, the Redskins, at least from a philosophical standpoint, did what I thought they needed to do. They focused on offense early and often through the first 4 rounds of the 2015 NFL Draft. It started with their 5th overall pick, Brandon Scherff, the offensive lineman from Iowa. Does he play left or right guard at the NFL level? Is he a right tackle? I don't think he's a left tackle at the NFL level. But, that was the biggest weakness area for the Redskins, both on their offense and I think, frankly, as a team as a whole, was their offensive line in 2014. They were putrid. They were terrible. They were just bad. And they needed to upgrade that in a big way. And they probably feel like they did with Scherff with that 5th overall pick. Now, I was personally surprised that they weren't able to peel back from number 5. But maybe once they identified Scherff as their guy in that process and they saw the first 4 picks went along, maybe they didn't want to risk trading down because they thought somebody else viewed Brandon Scherff in a similar light. I don't really know. Maybe they didn't want to gamble because that was their guy. And sometimes, as I would say, you got your guy, you fucking take your guy and you deal with it and you make it work. And that's pretty much it. But you look at some of the other mid-round picks they spent on the offensive side of the ball. A big physical running back like Matt Jones out of Florida late in round number 3. A guy like Jamison Crowder, the slot wide receiver from Duke in round 4. Ari Kwanjo, the big mauling guard from Alabama in the 4th round. And there was a concerted effort here to try and upgrade and fortify the trenches in front of RG3 and also give the Redskins quarterback and offense in general some young talent and depth at the offensive skill positions. Now, in terms of this draft, in terms of their best pick, for me, I've got to say it was honestly Matt Jones. I know some people probably question why they would take him in the 3rd round when they did, when maybe they thought he was a talent that was worth a later pick. I understand where some people would be like, don't they already have Alfred Morris? Well, number one, I think Matt Jones is a little bit underrated in this draft process, and I don't have a problem with him going late in round 3. Number 2, can you really have too many running backs at the NFL level, especially considering while he was a different type of player, they did just lose Roy Halou to the Raiders in free agency, so they could use a better backup to Alfred Morris. Number 3, you're looking at Alfred Morris entering a contract year in 2015. Are there any certainties that the Redskins want to devote big-time money to a guy like Alfred Morris? Matt Jones might provide some insurance, some flexibility for this organization long term. I thought that was the best pick because it did a lot of different things. One pick I think could surprise quite a bit might be Ari Kwanjo. There is a definite need for an upgrade on that offensive line at all areas, on the interior and outside. I think Kwanjo is a guy that could end up battling and potentially winning a starting guard job as a rookie. In terms of this draft, though, I do have some things that I do second guess for the Washington Redskins. I do second guess taking Brandon Scherff at number 5. Maybe I wouldn't second guess it as much if they traded back a little bit. But the fact is, in my view, they took a guard with a top 5 pick. You really want to be doing that? I mean, he's a guard at the NFL level, in my opinion. Even if he's a right tackle, you're still taking a right tackle with the top 5 pick. I mean, is that really what quality organizations do? You know, maybe you didn't like some of the other players. Maybe you just really love Brandon Scherf for what he could bring to the table. But again, you took a guard with a top 5 pick. Now, I have to question that, especially because maybe the Redskins were in a position where they could have accumulated additional picks. And I most certainly thought there were better players on the board with that 5th overall pick, whether that's a Kevin White, whether that's somebody like a Vic Beasley, whether that's somebody like a Leonard Williams, whatever the case might be. I just thought there were better players on the board at that point in time. So while they addressed a need, I don't think they got any more close to best player available at this point in time, because I personally don't even think Brandon Scherf was the best offensive lineman in this class. And if so many people assert that Brandon Scherf was the best offensive lineman in this class, then why are we already talking about him that he can't play tackle maybe on either side at the NFL level? Is he really that good of a prospect? Furthermore, when people sit there, I heard like Mike Mayock say his film was really clean like Zach Martin's. No, it wasn't. Zach Martin's film wasn't even that clean at Notre Dame, but his film was certainly a lot better, I thought, than Brandon Scherf's at Iowa. I'm just saying. I also second-guessed a little bit the pick of Preston Smith in round 2. I really like Smith coming out of Mississippi State, but I wasn't so sold that his best fit was in a 3-4. Now, maybe it'll work. Maybe they'll run some hybrid stuff under new defensive coordinator Joe Barry. Maybe they'll go with some 4-3 alignments. Maybe they'll go with some 3-down lineman alignments where they will line up Preston Smith on the line. But I thought Smith might be better suited to play in a 4-3 at the NFL level as opposed to a 3-4. Not saying that he can't be that or be more of like an elephant type of outside linebacker in a 3-4. I just wonder if that was really the best choice there. And at least I'll say this. You could make an argument at that point in time that maybe he was the best player on the board, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe at that point in time they should have been gambling on a big red zone target outside like a Dorial Green-Beckham. Maybe that would have been the choice for me here, just because, again, you've got to help out RG3 and a big guy like Dorial Green-Beckham in the second round. It's worth the gamble at that point in time because if that gamble pays off, it could pay off in a big way. And you look at the Redskins, that's one thing they desperately needed on the outside, and I don't think they really got in this draft. In terms of the overall thoughts in this draft, though, they addressed the O-line multiple times, which was a must. They turned a high third-round pick into 2 additional picks, and I thought they did okay with the additional picks that they got. I do think they got some quality players. I think Scherf will be a long-time starter at the NFL level, so 5 years from now, is it really going to matter whether he was drafted in the top 5 or not? I think Preston Smith is a quality player. I think, honestly, Matt Jones could be a quality player. I think one of their 4th-round picks, either Crowder or Quanjo, will end up being a quality player. So I think they did get some quality players. They managed to accumulate some additional picks. So in some ways, they made this draft count. I will say that. But it's just when I look at who was there on the board in round 2 versus who they did take and the systematic fit that I kind of question. When I look at round 1 and I look at it and I say, yeah, while they addressed a need, they didn't get anywhere near the best player on the board, in my opinion, at that point in time. It was kind of a middle-of-the-road, slightly above-average draft for the Washington Redskins. Not one I'm totally going to poon, but most certainly not one I'm going to praise. I ended up giving them a grade of a C+. Because I agree with the philosophy, and I like some of the things that they were able to accomplish. I just thought they could have maybe accomplished more. And I thought that they were off the mark a little bit, at least, with their first 2 picks.